After thinking about everything going on in the world today, I decided to explore the debate going on with the USA women's soccer team and the pay gap compared to the men's USA soccer team. This arose after the women's team won the World Cup. I chose to post to three different forums about this, one being YouTube, the second one being the Washington Post news article, and the third being Reddit. I chose all of these locations because I thought they would be very diverse and the different audience that would view them would be very diverse as well. So I first posted to YouTube. I replied to the video clip from The View. The women on there were talking about what is going on and how they believe this is a gender equality issue. And so my reply was that I do not believe this is a gender equality issue. I do think that women should be paid equally, the same as men in normal jobs like business jobs, what teaching, everything like that. But when you're looking at this situation, it has to do with the fact that the men's team is making more revenue for the organizations than the women's. So in my reply, I talked about how you need to think about the fact that the women's team is bringing in significantly less money than men. So therefore, you need to look at the revenue aspect of it. You can't just say, oh, women should be paid the same as men, when in reality, if they paid them the same amount, the organization would go broke. My second reply was to the Washington Post and news article. This was about the same thing with the pay gap and focused on gender equality as well, but it mainly focused on the fact that this was a huge accomplishment for the women's team. So that is why they were talking about the battle between the pay gap because it was such a great accomplishment. I replied to them and I said, of course, it's a great accomplishment, but at the end of the day, the women's team is a lot newer and that they don't bring in as much revenue again as that, and that we need to look at the economic side of things because most people are just saying, oh, like they won the World Cup twice in a row, they should totally be paid more. But in reality, it doesn't matter how many times they win the World Cup. If they are not bringing in the same amount of revenue as the men, there's no way you can pay them equally. My third reply was to Reddit. So I replied to this. This was more of an everyday um, forum where everyone in the world and regular citizens instead of like celebrities or writers were replying to this topic. So I just replied to that again with the same overall idea that we need to look at the economic side of things and that you can't pay someone the same amount as someone else if they're not bringing in enough revenue for the company. Therefore, when looking at the women's team brings in maybe $500,000 and the men's team can bring almost up to $1 billion. So that's just something to think about. So I did get a few replies. My YouTube reply was someone who said men's soccer is more popular and brings in around $1 billion, far less than women's. So that person agreed with me. The Washington Post, I did not get any replies. I think it would have created more useful deliberation if someone would have replied, whether or not it was agreeing with me or disagreeing with me. And then we could have replied back and forth. I do believe that I was heard by others on here since so many people read the Washington Post daily, and this issue debating the pay gap is still really big going on, and people are really interested in it still. So I do believe that I was heard, but I do think that people don't like to reply on news forums as much as like YouTube and Reddit. So on the Reddit forum, I also got a reply, and this was actually someone who was disagreeing with me. And so they talked about the fact that the USA women's team has worked really hard to get to where they are today, and the USA is like the only country that puts in the amount of effort that we do to making the USA women's soccer team so good. And so that's why they're so good, and there's really no other competition in the world that can compare to the USA women's soccer team because we put in so much effort. And they talked about how the men's team has a ton of different competitions, so that's why they're not as good and they haven't won the World Cup that many times. So that's why they think that the women should be paid equally as the men because they have worked so hard for that. So I do not believe that I or others could have acted differently for a better deliberation to occur. I do think that I could have replied more, or again, to the people that replied to me, especially to the person who disagreed with me, because that would have been the best place for me to reply, to talk about our differences and just go back and forth on that. So I believe that we should all read other forums with what is going on in the world today, because in today's world, we have technology literally at the tip of our fingertips, and we're so attached to it. We can talk to anyone in the world at almost any time about anything. And I really think that we should use that to our advantage. So, our country's founding beliefs are based on the freedom of speech and the freedom of press, and we should use our rights. Expressing what we believe is our right, and many of us do not take advantage of that. Many of us in our generation are stuck just looking at Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, just looking at what's going on in our lives and then our personal friends' lives, not really paying attention to what is going on in the world around us. So I'm going to give you a challenge. From now on, look into something that is going on in the world, whether it's a political controversy, a pop culture controversy, or just another like random controversy that people are debating. Pick an opinion and then reply to them and be able to share your opinion. I think it would be really well um, for you and help you learn how to deliberate with people back and forth. So, in conclusion, I have learned a lot from the experience. I am one of those people who usually just sticks to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, just looking at what my followers are posting. But in the world today, we have so many different online forums that we can look at and read and respond to. So, from doing this project, I have learned that that is important to do and to express my opinions. I always think about when posting online that people are going to be rude and hurtful and just like really take advantage of people who don't agree with what that person agrees with. But after doing this project, I realized that I got some good feedback, and even though one person disagreed with me, they weren't mean to me about it or yelling or being saying nasty words and stuff. So I've really learned that you can talk to someone online and express your thoughts and deliberate with people and it not be in a hurtful way. So I think that's what I've learned most from this, and I think that we all should take advantage of that.